This is a Dell Optiplex GXi from around 1998. It features a Pentium 133 inside, as well as an S3 Trio 64 Plus graphics chipset. Today, we're going to be restoring this computer and then installing Windows 95. Let's get started. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is clean out the internals of this computer. It's actually not too dusty inside, but still, I want it to look brand new inside and out. So let's start by taking the lid off. Now that we're inside of the computer, it's time to unplug all of the ribbon cables connecting the drives to the motherboard. I'll also go ahead and unplug the power supply. Now what we need to do is take out the one screw that's holding the power supply in, which I've already done, and then we can slide it out. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and take out the floppy drive as well as the CD-ROM drive. These are quick release, so there's no screws involved. That's what I've discovered with a lot of these small form factor machines, no screws. Well, here's one of the few screws we'll have to encounter, and it's on the hard drive, which is what we're going to take out next. Now, we just have to pull out this riser card, and then we can unscrew the motherboard. At this point, we only have the motherboard left in the case. As you can see, this CPU has a really beefy cooler on it, which has no fans. And yeah, so there's actually only one screw holding this motherboard in, which I soon discovered. And what I also discovered is that you just slide it back and it comes right out. Now we're just left with an empty chassis. The next step is to clean the motherboard and get all the dust off of it. What I did here is just used a brush. Now, I can't stress this enough, never use a vacuum cleaner or anything that sucks on a motherboard. You can pull off surface mount components and it's really not a good idea. Whereas something like a brush, it won't do any damage. As you can see here, it doesn't need much roughness. You can really just get all the dirt and grime and the dust off this motherboard just by using a brush. I followed this same procedure on all of the components, as shown here. Now that all of our internals are clean, it's time to move to the externals, namely the case. As you can see here, this case is in all right condition. It isn't yellowed, which is really surprising for one of these Optiplex machines, but it is in a bit of worse for wear condition. So I'm going to use some glass cleaner here. This is just a very weak cleaner, just to get the surface grime off. Then I'll come back with harsher things like isopropyl alcohol to remove some of the harder to get off grime. Next up, I'm going to use this magic eraser to try to get off some of the scuffs and marks. This didn't really give the results I wanted it to, so I felt like it was time to move on to something more harsh that would really get all the grime off. And that so happened to be isopropyl alcohol. This stuff works wonders on all these scuffs that you can see on the side of the case here. And this is the part of a restoration that really takes a long time, making it look perfect. Sure, you can just wipe something down with a bit of glass cleaner and call it a day, but I didn't want to stop there. I wanted this computer to look pristine, and it was well worth it because it looks fabulous. But yeah, using these things like isopropyl alcohol will really detail the machine. So even when you're looking at it up close, it looks brand new. It looks as good in the video as it does in real life when it's done. That's what I'm going for. Now this is hard work. It's not easy. As you can see here, it takes a fair bit of effort to get just the simplest of marks off. But between the magic eraser and isopropyl alcohol, I was able to get the case to a really clean state. Believe it or not, the front of the case was actually the least dirty part. I mean, there was no scuff marks on it or anything, but I still gave it a good clean with some isopropyl and some glass cleaner. Once I got the case to a really nice state, I decided it was time to reassemble the whole computer. Now that the internals of the machine were done, now it was finally time to put the cover back on the computer and consider this restoration, at least the physical side, complete. Here we go. Let's put this cover on and see how it looks. And there we go. Wow, it looks stunning in person. I paired it up with a monitor, some speakers, a keyboard and a mouse, and gosh, it looks really good. This computer is going to have great compatibility with games, since it has that S3 Trio 64 chipset for graphics, and it has some kind of Sound Blaster compatible thing inside of it. But it actually works really well, surprisingly. Even though this is a business class machine, it's actually really good for games, from what the specs are. Now that the physical side of the restoration is done, it's time to install Windows 95 on this machine. As you can see here, the install went pretty smoothly. I sat down with a cup of tea, and after about 30 minutes, Windows 95 was completely installed. Now we're up to the phase where it's going to set up Windows 95 and load it for the first time. So it was going really well at this point, and it continued that way. One thing I like about these Dell machines is that it finds the drivers automatically for them, so there's no need to go through the hassle of installing all these crazy hard to find drivers, because they pre-install and it all works out great for you. Sadly, I can't find any OEM discs for this machine, so it won't have any of the Dell branding. It's simply just a clean install of 95. If anyone happens to have some OEM discs for this machine, like a restore disc or something, let me know, because I'd be really interested in one. Now, I just made sure that all the drivers were properly installed. There were a couple that weren't, but I just fixed those up. And then I had a go at picking out a nice wallpaper, and yeah, I configured the machine a bit, and it was looking really good at this point. Now that the PC's basically configured how I want it, it's time to try out some games. Let's start off with the original Doom. This has audio and sound effects, and it works perfect with this machine. I think next up we'll try some Wolfenstein 3D. This game should also sound amazing and play amazing, so let's give it a try. Wow, that sure is running great. Well, that's about all for today. We've restored this Dell Optiplex GXi back to its original condition. This thing looks stunning in person, and the camera really doesn't do it justice. It's all these little fine details of a computer that really make or break the completely restored feel of it. And this one feels brand new. So yeah, it turned out really well. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.